Hello and welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson, and this is one of these strange stories from a Chinese studio. The recording you're about to hear is only a minute long. It's a story called The Dutch Carpet. The recording you're about to hear was released into the public domain through LibriVox by a reader who signs himself on the forum as JTFO Canada. I'd like to thank him and all of his production team over at LibriVox. After the story, I'll come back with some other plot hooks.
The Dutch Carpet. Formerly, when the Dutch were permitted to trade with China, the officer in command of the coast defences would not allow them, on account of their great numbers, to come ashore. The Dutch begged very hard for the grant of a piece of land such as a carpet would cover, and the officer above mentioned, thinking that this could not be very large, acceded to their request. A carpet was accordingly laid down, big enough for about 2 people to stand on, but by dint of stretching, it was soon enough for 4 or 5, and so they went on, stretching and stretching, until at last it covered about an acre, and by, with the help of their knives, they had filched a piece of ground several miles in extent.
And thanks again to the reader and the other people at LibriVox. I believe I first heard the story about a woman who bargained for an oxhide of space to build her nunnery in Northern Ireland, but I've seen variants in other places. I recall a king who bargained this much land with Vikings as another example, as the origin story for one of the towns that was settled in, again, I think, Ireland. It makes a fine Covenant origin story. Your ancestors bargained for space to unfold a picnic blanket, and as it happens, it reached from the top of the hill all the way to the river. Your Covenant has many fine spinners in it and has a festival each year to celebrate the blanket. You carry it about during the Aegeus of the Hearth ritual. You leave it on the meeting table during Covenant meetings. You sometimes check its memory for a point of Covenant history. The design on the blanket is like a battle titan for your grogs. In Ars Magica, we have supernatural realms that bargain with mortals, either wanting land or giving it away. A demon who asks for enough land to bury one of his servants, just enough for his shroud and no more. A fairy who seeks enough land for the hooves of his horse and no extra. Magi who seek enough of a church's land to raise a beacon fire as an act of charity. Magi who deal with a fairy court for as much land as rests in the shadow of a coin. I used to try and pull these stories back in university, but one of my players was studying law and pointed out that, lacking a meeting of the minds, there is no contract in English law. I'm not sure if this is true of medieval laws in the various places, but it certainly seems effective with fairies and, surprisingly, demons. Why demons allow themselves to be tricked has been discussed in various other locations, but in short, it tempts others to wager with demons, if there's a monument to a demon losing nearby. Also, some of the losses were just greater evils in the making. A lot of the devil's bridges found about the place have been used to allow a conquering army to sweep across a barrier that otherwise would have prevented them from sacking nearby kingdoms. But your saga may vary.